You're driving down a road, about to reach an intersection, and look, there's a traffic light. All cars have to get to a complete stop. No matter what the speed limit is, your speed gets to zero, significantly reducing your average speed. And you burn more gas or battery with the constant acceleration and deceleration. The traffic light is there all day. There are no cars passing. You wish you could switch them off and just rely on priority rules. But why does this have to happen? Or does it really have to happen? The first ever signalized intersection was installed outside of the British Houses of Parliament in London. It was invented by J.P. Knight in 1868, who happened to be a railway engineer. He thought if trains are fast and heavy and they have to get to a complete stop and start with a signal, then why should not horses and carriages stop too? Yeah, the light was mainly operated by a police officer and it was generally a really smart idea for its time. In 1914, the traffic light was electrified and installed in multiple locations, first being Cleveland, Ohio, USA, at the corner of Euclid Avenue and East 105th Street. It only used two colors, red and green, with a manual buzzer to warn of a change. From then, and as cars started being heavier and faster, the general public hated vehicles. So they really loved the traffic light. They did not have to stop and look all the time. They would just stop for a few seconds and a signal would take care of them, clearing their way. Until the 1960s, where massive amounts of land and housing were bulldozed for the automobile. Streets were widened and transit was turned up following pressure from private automobile interests. Now the streets were full of cars. Instead of 50 people taking the tram, 70 people the train, 10 people cycling and 6 people taking their horses, there were now 136 automobiles to replace the previously 14 different working accelerators. A traffic light now couldn't stay red for 4 seconds, 2 cars needed that time, and intersections were now full of rushing drivers who needed to get to their job or house and raced for a green light. The time of each green segment was updated to 30 seconds and then 90, 120, today even reaching 180 seconds in specific intersections. And here we are today. The average speed of an automobile in New York is 4 to 6 miles per hour. That's 7 to 10 kilometers for anyone else watching this video. Further underscoring how you can either use space efficiently or you can have cars. Today some countries have tried to minimize waiting times and to their credit they have done a pretty good job. In the Netherlands, for example, the average waiting time within an urban area is only 30 seconds, while you'll occasionally find concepts such as the green wave, which gives a green light if drivers are following the speed limit. But even with the smartest sensors and cameras, a traffic light will still lower your average speed. Then, as more sensors are being installed, the traffic light is starting to become way more expensive. And just see how much space is needed for a signalized intersection. There is no space for green here, nor for people. All space is dedicated to asphalt and vehicles. Well, vehicles themselves are getting affected by their own crap. In the US and Canada and many other parts of the world for that matter, a traffic light engineer will look at this and say, hey, wouldn't it be a good idea to install here a roundabout? Of course it would. Now, not surprising at all, while the Netherlands pays about 300,000 euros to build a roundabout with cycling and pedestrian priority, American cities will have to hire a ton of new people, so the cost will skyrocket. For a single roundabout with some useless flashing lights, it can go up to $3 million. And yeah, of course, the roundabout will lower waiting times and fatality rates, although the design used in the US is really bad for giving way to pedestrians and cyclists. But not only it's more expensive, it's also extremely expensive to install at every intersection. For example, Carmel, Indiana has spent 120 million euros on building roundabouts. And they still haven't covered half of their intersections. All of that for one reason. Every travel surface in North America is designed and categorized like a highway, leading to a huge amount of big intersections in every city. As an example, in the Netherlands, road surfaces are categorized to 3 kinds. The Voorrangsplein, which are the neighborhood access streets, the gebiedsomsluitingswegs, which are distributor roads, and the stroomwegs, which are highways. The city of Utrecht in the Netherlands has only 38 road-to-road intersections. But if we scale down London inner area to the size of Utrecht, it would have 428 intersections, and those are only the signalized intersections. The heavy traffic in Utrecht is only at those intersections, so there is no need for traffic lights, roundabouts or anything else in the streets. So what do they use there? When a street meets another street in the Netherlands, the entire junction is raised to sidewalk level. This acts as a huge speed bump, forcing drivers to slow down. Moreover, priority is given to the right, which means all cars will get slowed down, so even if a crash happens, it will be extremely minor due to the slow speeds. Achtergrondwegen have a speed limit of 30 km or less because they're not a path for drivers. Drivers use the distributor roads and will only use a street once starting or getting to their final destinations for only a few meters. Pedestrians and cyclists are allowed to use the streets because they are not dangerous like cars and they do not create noise, but this is a topic for a future video. Of course, for this to happen, there should be roads between the neighborhoods and the streets should be cut off to through traffic, which can be done by installing model filters between them and changing their direction every time they meet up with a road, so the car volume is extremely minor. When a street meets a road, a doorlopenstoot is used, which can be translated to continuous sidewalk. This continuous sidewalk continues through the intersection along with the bicycle lane installed on the main roads, which forces drivers to slow down before entering or exiting the street. The best designs found have space between the sidewalk, cycle path and road, which is really important for giving priority to all users without blocking the path of any other. This design is also much more enjoyable for wheelchair users as they do not have to drop down to the road. Also, a parked car can easily block a small ramp, but the same cannot be said for an entire sidewalk and bicycle lane, that's especially bicycle lane talking about the Netherlands. So far, most of the designs are quite known and, while not commonly used outside of the Netherlands, they are not so unique. But wait, what the heck is that? This is a Voorrangsplein, or as translated by some, Priority Square. It is a relatively new design brought to life in Utrecht. It was originally used only in the intersection of het Rooiland and Constantijnstraat, but it was not an instant success. Dutch drivers often mistook it for a rotonde due to its compact size, which led to near crashes. The idea was to give priority to the former ring road without using a traffic light or the stupid configuration of priority rules used in Athens. Thankfully, after this failure, Utrecht didn't say, "See, those things do not work here," like many other cities could do, but instead modified the design, which today serves as a new practical design for half of the intersections in Utrecht's former ring road. The Voorrangsplein was also used in Hilversum in 2024, where the fairly early stages for the Voorrangsplein were actually born. It was also implemented here between West and Amsterdam, as well as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times between Nuenen and Eindhoven. And when two roads meet with equal priority, a roundabout is used. The current guidelines set by the CROV suggest this roundabout design. For those designs to work though, there only needs to be one lane per direction and no more. I really often hear people saying that this road or that road has traffic with 4 lanes. It will be a traffic disaster if it only has 1 lane. But this is absolutely not true. There are 2 main reasons a road has traffic: coordination costs, which only increases by adding more lanes, and traffic lights which cannot be avoided when adding more than 1 lane. Adding more lanes also induces demand, which will soon make the traffic levels even worse. But I've talked about that in a previous video. 1 lane per direction also has other benefits. Look at this design here with 2 lanes per direction. By taking the 2 middle out, there is now room for a green island. This reduces temperatures along the road and has green in the area, but is also wide enough to allow cars in this direction. This way, a car turning left will only have to yield to the right, instead of yielding to the upcoming direction and trying to make a turn in a complex intersection. Of course, we're only talking about distributor roads. Those are only to connect small towns and places in the outskirts of the city. Highways in the Netherlands obviously do not have 1 lane per direction and 50 km speed limit, nor should they. Here is a superhighway between Amsterdam and Utrecht, which is admittedly a really dumb name for a highway. As you can see, it only uses overpasses and underpasses, and the national speed limit in all highways is 100 km per hour. When exiting a highway via a highway ramp, right now traffic lights are still mostly used because there are no pedestrians and cyclists, so they're only delaying cars. But if cars can't get to a complete stop, which they should at the traffic light whatsoever, then a turbo roundabout can also be installed. A turbo roundabout is a really great idea and it probably deserves its own video someday. Anyone entering chooses his lane and yields once. There's a separation between the lanes so you cannot cross hazards by trying to pass other vehicles. And if you enter from the wrong lane, you can't endanger Athens in order to go to your correct direction, because the lanes physically stop at some point. Although there are markings on the ground from really far away, so you shouldn't have a working vision if you get to choose the wrong lane. And this design here is extremely safe at high speeds. One thing that turbo roundabouts should never do is combine cycling and walking with a ground level of pass for vehicles. And I am looking at you, Silversum. Turbo roundabouts should have overpasses and underpasses, and it is always best to keep cyclists at ground level with cars having an artificial incline or decline. Now, with all of that in mind, could we possibly remove traffic lights from everywhere? Technically, yes. Practically, no. Why? Because even in the Netherlands, some travel services still act as a grijze weg. This means that a neighborhood access street and a distributor road are combined, what strongtones like to call a stroad. This is expensive, inefficient and really dangerous, but you can see those kinds of traces from the 1960s all around the Netherlands. One example is Jaanstraat in Haarlem. Those kinds of places neither have space for a roundabout or proper signalized intersection for that matter, so they use an unprotected and time-consuming and dangerous traffic light intersection, since the traffic control cannot be handled by a simple yielding to the right. At this point of the video, many people may argue that this could not work with trams. But this is not a big problem if the tram network is not part of the road itself. Some years ago, the Netherlands stopped building tram lanes in the middle of the street. The new extension of the Utrecht snail tram is all placed in the edge of any road and isn't particularly a part of any specific road. In Rotterdam, the Koolsingel was recently redesigned to feature the tram lines in the edge as well. This helps, as anyone who wants to turn right or continue straight can wait while the tram has closed its gates, or with a flashing light like here in Freiburg. This is not really a big issue with smaller tram networks, because a tram that follows a road is a tram that is indirect. Take a look at Utrecht's new tram line 22. The line starts from the back of a park and ride with no motor vehicle access. Continues through a multi-transit area where cars and bands outside of the Utrecht Science Park, and after about a kilometer the tram stays in the edge of a road. It crosses it once where there is only straight moving traffic, so a light briefly stops drivers to let the tram pass, but is completely switched off where a tram isn't passing. And then the tram merges on top of the train tracks, passing on top of vaarterrein on an elevated expressway until the Centraal Station. In no part of this route was the tram part of the road. Cars had to separately pass the tram tracks and separately the roads. Compare now that to the Amsterdam tram network, where the trams are built in the middle of the road. They are a part of the road and the tram tracks will continue straight through the road, while others may join or leave to or from other roads. And of course, since the tram tracks are heavy and complex vehicles, they cannot stop if Kees van Dijk decides to cross the tracks. So they need traffic lights. But now, instead of one flashing light for cars, there needs to be a dedicated set of traffic lights that will admire the tram crossing. Simply because a warning light will not stop people from crossing from here in their horror to not be blocking the intersection. All in all, signalized intersections are inefficient, space-consuming, time-consuming and bad for the environment, and there are a lot of places where they can easily be removed. But not all traffic lights can be removed from everywhere in such a short time, and there are definitely challenges along with the benefits of this. No matter what, it is good seeing cities changing to the best, and newer designs constantly coming out to improve our daily life. Thank you for watching this video until the end. I really enjoyed making it, but it took me an immense amount of time, so I would suggest you to subscribe. You may also support me on Patreon, where I will start making extra videos for only Patreon subscribers.